Right now, I appear to be the only person in Path of Exile 2 using this double vision unique crossbow. By building around this reload triggers Gemini Surge mechanic, I can wade through maps firing my endless armor-piercing rounds machine gun where every shot explodes in an AoE. It's so fun and satisfying to play. Usually when I finish a build, I kinda just stop playing that character, but with this one, I find myself mapping simply for the fun of it. I don't really care about the drops or currency, it's more about having swarms of enemies to shoot at. I can clear juiced tier 15 and 16 maps, and while it's not as overtly powerful as some other builds, it gets the job done and in a way that is very satisfying and very cheap. I think my entire gear set right now is worth about 5 to 10 div, maybe less. The problem with this crossbow is that it drops at level 20, which means it has damage stats for level 20. It can drop higher, all the way up to a level 90 requirement, but that only increases the level of the Gemini Surge skill. The weapon stats stay the exact same. As with many low-level uniques, this presents a huge problem where scaling the damage can seem like an impossible task. But alas, we're here and it works, and I'll show you some of the cool interactions that bring it all together. So to start off, we're playing Titan, and if you've seen my incendiary shot Titan from a while back, you may know where this part is going. So the goal is to have every shot of our armor-piercing rounds be empowered with one of these surges, for that machine gun with exploding bullets theme. To do so, we need to constantly trigger reloads without ever needing to stop for a manual reload. The key to this is the double barrel 3 support, which causes heavy stuns to automatically reload our weapon. And as a Titan, we have access to crushing impacts, which makes our hits crushing blows, which heavy stun enemies that are primed for stun. So instead of having to fill up the full stun bar, we only need 40% for white mobs, 50% for magic, 60% for rare, and 70% for uniques. Stun is much easier to build up with melee damage, so this is a huge help for us considering we're ranged. And remember, we're using a weapon with level 20 stats, so we need every advantage we can get to make our armor-piercing rounds quickly stun in the end game. It also provides a nice 25% more damage multiplier. For the rest of the Ascendancy, we've got hulking form and more life. When clearing, it's the Gemini Surges that make up the bulk of our damage. The armor-piercing rounds are mostly just a vehicle to carry them and to stun and armor break enemies. A troubling problem here is that you don't want any other damage to steal that heavy stun proc. And if these surges are the bulk of our damage, the auto reloads from our armor-piercing rounds will rarely trigger and the whole engine would fall apart. To solve this, we use the Pin 2 support. This prevents Gemini Surge from applying stun, and its physical damage is pinning instead. But pinned enemies can't be stunned, though fortunately for us, these surges are 100% elemental damage, so the skill does not apply any stun or pin, leaving all the heavy stun triggers to armor-piercing rounds for constant reloads and new sets of surges. Additionally, this support also provides a nice crit hit chance bonus, and the weapon just so happens to come with a high crit value, which we end up building around in the tree. All in all, this Pin 2 support is incredibly synergistic with this build. It's almost unbelievable how perfectly it fits. For the other supports, I simply have more damage and area. I'm using a level 84 crossbow, but if you have a level 90, you unlock an extra support socket. I'm not exactly sure what I'd slot in there, maybe +1 fire skills or something. For armor piercing rounds, I'm using double barrel 3 of course for the auto reloads, rapid attacks 2 for increased attack speed, which is more DPS and more surges being churned through. Fresh Clip 2, which gives us a huge damage boost and helps to claw back some of the missing damage from the weak crossbow stats. Stun 2 for a huge 70% stun build-up multiplier, and lastly, Chain 1. Now this may seem like an odd choice. Why Chain 1 and not 2, and can you afford the damage loss? Allow me to explain. First of all, the surges don't explode more than once, they only explode at the end of their path. So piercing effects are really bad for us and are completely avoided. The issue with having no chain at all is that when you combine our high fire rate with only hitting one-ish target at a time, you're not proccing heavy stuns often enough to sustain the Gemini Surge engine. By chaining once, you're hitting twice as many enemies, and by building around crit and this incredible anoint of Shatter Palm, which grants 30% increased stun buildup, which is great, but more importantly, it grants 10% chance to daze, and dazed enemies take 50% more stun buildup. This means that dazed enemies for me take around 500% extra stun buildup due to that huge multiplicative boost. So between that and crit, we have these frequent but random spikes of stun buildup between multiple targets being hit, which helps to stagger these reload procs and ensure the engine keeps running. The problem with Chain 2 and beyond is that the surge doesn't explode anywhere close to where we intend it to. you'll be killing packs from the back, often off screen, to the front, and wasting stuns on close enemies and running out of reload opportunities. Chain 1 feels like the perfect balance between more stuns while also damaging the enemies you're aiming at. As for the 30% less damage, while it's not ideal, you're gaining much more than that by hitting 2 targets and having a significantly more efficient engine for churning out surges. While we're looking at gems, let's cover how we take down bosses. Unfortunately, there just isn't a way to make this weapon work well enough for endgame bossing, so on my second set I have a grenade crossbow using oil, gas and explosive grenades. Other people have made guides on grenade builds, so I won't cover everything here. The basic premise is to drop a whole bunch of grenades with extra projectiles, with chance to explode multiple times and to detonate them with explosive shot. For my spirit gems, I'm running scavenged, plating for more armor. We're constantly breaking armor, so keeping this stacked is no problem. I'm also using Eternal Rage. With a couple of talents, I'm permanently at 47 Rage for a sizable 47% more damage multiplier. When it comes to the talent tree, I'm level 93 right now. And as long as you're in these general, warrior and mercenary areas, you pretty much can't go wrong. There are so many useful options that you can chop and change and not really notice too much of a difference. Something of note is that I'm running these surrounded nodes, and to be fair with you, I only just swapped to this helm and these nodes very recently. Almost all of my endgame was done without them, so it's not mandatory by any means. Our main goals are just to pick up stun buildup, attack damage, two-hand weapon damage, this does work on the surges, crit, attack speed, move speed, armor, and some grenade weapon set 2 talents. Honestly, you can approach this tree in just about any way. I haven't run the numbers, especially for earlier endgame like 60s and 70s. My gut says these huge damage nodes and crit clusters would be best, and that's what I personally did before moving into the merc side of the tree. The crit nodes are really strong for us, and they get exponentially stronger the more you have. Sundering does an extra 25% crit damage bonus to stunned enemies, and we're always stunning. Overwhelming Strike gives us 20% more stun build-up with crits, and these are just more big bonuses, and we don't care about the mana downside. Some other interesting nodes include Light on Your Feet, which makes us immune to maim and hinder. These effects feel horrible, so this is some great quality of life. Perfect Opportunity is some extra stun build-up, but our damage is also lucky against heavy stunned enemies, which we're doing all the time. And this cluster is just more max rage to increase that multiplicative modifier from our rage that we get from the Eternal Rage support. Before I move on from the talents, I think it's worth mentioning a potentially stronger late game variation using Arbiter of Fire, which converts everything we do to fire damage, scaling it with the Molten One's Gift, which makes broken armor affect fire damage. Plus there are small nodes that increase this effect, which is further increased by Titan's hulking form. Elemental damage inflicts less stun buildup, so you do need more stun buildup or more damage to compensate. There is also a lot of potential, albeit very expensive potential, for both builds and using a +6 fire skills amulet and or the helm with +4 to all skills for another 10 gem levels on Gemini Surge. On a level 90 crossbow, that takes you from a 181% damage multiplier all the way to 345%, which is a massive increase. Fire skills also works on your grenades. Obviously this is a huge investment for this build and not something I can come even close to trying, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. As for our gear, I'm simply running armor and life for our defense because our talents are already stretched so thin and we have the 15% life from being Titan. With some currency, you could get far more creative with your gearing. For me, I'm simply trying to cap resistances, get some armor, life and added damage to rings and gloves. Because our crossbow has such low base damage, every bit of plus damage from gear is hugely beneficial. Ideally, you'd be picking up far more than what I have. Damage wise, any added damage to attacks is the #1 priority, then crit and attack speed. My current crossbow isn't perfect, but it's fairly close. First of all, you really want 6 of each surge. You can get away with 5 or even 4, but 6 feels far more forgiving and ensures the engine keeps running. And because the damage is tied to the level 20 version, any plus damage is incredibly important. For this reason, twice corrupting is super valuable here. I have no idea if this video will change pricing or not, but at least before making it, these crossbows hardly moved at all, and outside of the level 90 bases, they're dirt cheap. I bought a bunch of level 84, 6 of 6 surges with high physical damage rolls for between 1 and 60 exalts, maxed the sockets and quality, corrupted then double corrupted to get this result on the 5th try. I think ideally this 23% physical damage would instead be an extra socket and the cold damage replaced with fire. I've been stacking fire damage mainly because of trying out the Arbiter of Fire variation, and it allows me to use the fire infusion support on grenades. These flat damage runes give more damage than percent physical for us, and the summer rune is a huge boost. While a higher base provides another socket and gem level, there are so few of them available, they're so expensive, and compromising on stats and a good double corrupt very likely isn't worth that trade-off. Ultimately, that Gemini Surge damage is still based off your weapon damage, so you want it to be as high as possible. For the general playstyle, it's mostly a one-button build, holding down armor-piercing rounds and mowing down packs. You should be fine taking down the vast majority of rares with this skill, and only need to resort to grenades when it's a really tanky unit in higher level maps. You can manually reload between packs to be optimal and to ensure you have a fresh set of surges for the next enemies. And for leveling, this build is so damn fun. I had an absolute blast ripping through the campaign with it. For your earlier levels, the weapon damage isn't a problem. I ran Chain 2 for most of it and melted everything. The hardest part of making this build work is in the early endgame around level 60 to 75, where the weapon damage has fallen off and you don't really have that many talents to work with yet. Ultimately, this has been a very rewarding build to play. It has clear challenges to overcome, but there always seems to be a neat solution just within reach. Maybe it'll change after this video, I don't know, but it's also been cool having what feels like private access to the entire Double Vision unique stock on trade, picking and choosing whichever one I want, often from listings that are over a month old because no one is using this weapon. I'll link to a max roll, POV or something below. If you found this build interesting, or you happen to also enjoy some build videos I've made in the past, like the Incendiary Shot Titan, or the server crashing Bloodlands build from Diablo 4, please consider subscribing to this new channel. Previously, I was uploading on Struth Gaming, but that's mainly for my FPS aiming content, and I think would work better for everyone if all of these videos had their own channel instead. While it may not be quite relevant to viewers here, I would still appreciate you checking out my store, struthgaminggear.com, for the Clawmate mouse mods and premium gaming sleeves I designed. There's also some other cool stuff like gyro balls. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.